It is such an honor to be here tonight. The life of a writer, as Kevin discovered, is often lonesome, and I feel like I spent 2.5 years on my sofa with my laptop and my dog next to me, writing about things that meant a great deal to me, and to be able to go out into the world and talk to real life human beings about the young people in this book is an amazing privilege. So I'm very honored to be here to talk about the issue of youth homelessness with you. My history with Covenant House actually started in college. I volunteered for the homeless shelter in Connecticut, where I went to school, and was very moved by the people I met there. When I started my first job, I was working at a foundation, and one of our grantees was Covenant House, and I volunteered as an intake worker, interviewing the young people who were basically a year or two younger than I was at the time. And I was very impressed with what they had been through, how strong they were, and how dedicated they were to getting to a better place in their lives. I felt a little foreign to the situation because I grew up in a very comfortable home, a very loving family, got a great education, but I soon came to learn what I had in common with the young people that I was interviewing. The least interesting thing about homeless young people is their homelessness. They often have, just like any group of young people, incredible talents, great senses of humor, great warmth, and I really resonated with the young people I was interviewing with. Fast forward about 15 years, and I found myself as a reporter for the New York Times, covering New Jersey and child welfare issues. And I first met Kevin at a Covenant House in Newark, where I was interviewing him as he started his work as the state's child advocate, uncovering wrongs that had been done against young people in the state of New Jersey. And over the years, I covered him as he went on to lead the child welfare system in New Jersey as it underwent an incredible number of reforms. And in 2009, he approached me after he'd left state government about the possibility of writing a book that would talk about the work of Covenant House, the young people who come there, and most importantly, how they were able to transform themselves with the help of Covenant House from dejected, upset, underprivileged kids who had been through horrible circumstances. And then in his experience working there over the years, he would see them transform into incredible young people who were attaining their dreams, building their own families, building their own careers. And how did that happen? How did they get from point A to point B? So for me, it was a dream project. I'd always wanted to write something longer. I'd always wanted to write about people who needed their voices heard. When I was writing about the victims of 9/11, I was telling stories that I felt were very crucial. The world needed to know what was lost that day. And I felt the same way about writing about kids at Covenant House. But how many people here do you think know anyone who was homeless when you were in high school? Anybody? Probably a lot more of you than that went to school with homeless people, but they didn't want anyone to know about it. They tried desperately to remain invisible. It's not safe for them to be known as homeless. They can be very exploited, they're very vulnerable, they're embarrassed, they're ashamed. But there are many more of them than you think you know out there. They're often folding your clothes at the Gap, or riding on a bus with you, or at on a street, walking down the street, not sitting on a corner. But their stories are very seldom heard. And how can we as a society help them if nobody knows that they're there? So that was why I was particularly excited to take on this book. I also noticed that some of the greatest people in history would, in modern times, likely have ended up either at Covenant House or at a similar shelter or in need of a similar shelter, including Ignatius Loyola. His circumstances were very difficult growing up. His father passed away. He was raised as one of, I think, 9 children with a sketchy education, and many of the kids that we see at the shelter have similar difficult circumstances, but look at what he went on to accomplish with his lives and how it's touched so many other lives throughout the centuries. When Kevin and I first spoke about writing this book, we decided it was essential that we not just tell the stories of the young people, but also give people an outlet for their concern and give them an entire chapter on what they could do to help, so that you wouldn't be reading it and end up depressed at the end, but you'd hopefully read it and want to go out and work to help solve the problem. And that's what Chapter 8's all about. My favorite part of the whole book is a paragraph that I didn't write, and neither did Kevin. It was written by Cory Booker, the Senate candidate and Newark mayor, who's a great friend to Covenant House and to kids who have dreams everywhere. And I want to end my introduction of our work with the best paragraph, I think, in the book, and I hope that you take it to heart when you think about the next 4 years here and what you might have to give back to our society. Cory writes, "I've learned that real heroes usually aren't the kind of people you read about in newspapers or see on TV. Real heroes are usually the ones concerned with the least glamorous of things. In fact, I've come to believe strongly that the most heroic or biggest thing we can do in any day is a small act of kindness, decency, and love. What frustrates me is that so often we allow our inability to do the big thing to undermine our determination to do the small things, those acts of kindness, decency, and love that in their aggregate over days, weeks, and years make for powerful change." So I hope you consider joining in that movement towards change for homeless young people. And I'd like to have a video shown now about what the specifics are of the work that we do in our shelters. Thank you.